In this video, we're going to illustrate how to respond to a government RFP using Proposal Kit. Now, it doesn't have to be a government RFP. This will actually work for any RFP or anytime you need to create a proposal or you need to provide a more specific layout. Now, we have hundreds of design themes in Proposal Kit. We're going to illustrate this using the plain design pack called Proposal Pack for any business. You could also use the Proposal Pack for government grants. Those are our two packages that are the most conservative looking and do not have graphics and color schemes embedded ahead of time. And also the chapter headers, since they are all text-based, are the easiest to customize, which is going to be a common thing you have to do in responding to an RFP with a set of instructions. Now, you could use any of our graphic design theme proposal packs. However, you might have to do a little more work to get the chapter headers customized if you need to customize the chapter headers. So we will illustrate this using a very minimal design change with just some colors and a logo. So in the preferences, and there are other videos that will describe this. So in Custom 1, in the Logos and Graphics Preferences screen, click the Browse button, and then just browse to your company logo. It should be around 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch high and wide to fit on the cover page. All right, so we've browsed to and selected our logo graphic. And we have the For Any Business design theme selected, which is the plain design pack. Everything will just be black and white text. And in the Edit Styles screen, we're just going to change the color scheme from shades of gray. And we'll add a little bit of color in here to match that custom logo. And the logo we're using is in shades of blue and green. Now we have a couple minor graphic changes and color changes. Now the process of creating a document is going into the Document Projects button. And this is what you'll do for any document you create in the wizard. The project name, you can just give this a title. It's just for you to search for in the future in the project lists. Notice Custom 1 has been auto-selected as the title page header graphic. Since we set up a custom graphic in the preferences, it picked that up. And just to speed things up, we're going to turn off the Excel dynamic spreadsheet linking. So whenever you're going to create a document, you add a project, and to select all the chapters, you're going to go into the Pick Documents screen. And almost all documents are going to start with a title page, and they'll have an ending back page, and we'll add a cover letter. We know this is going to be a long document, so we're just going to add a table of contents. Now, everything else between the table of contents and this back page are going to be all the body pages we need to pick for the RFP response or proposal, whatever we're writing. So this is where you need to be able to map all of the things that are asked for in an RFP to chapters that we have in the proposal kit. Now, there's 2,000 plus chapters in the library to pick from. You see the top 40 most common ones on the screen here. But using all these drop downs, the search by name tab, you can get to all the thousands of chapters. Now, we just happen to have an RFP instruction list here that we got from a customer of ours that we did this process with, and we're just going to illustrate that same process we worked with them to show you in this video. Now, RFP instructions are going to come in many forms. There's no standards. Every agency is going to have a different set of instructions. Every proposal, every RFP could be different. Whoever writes up the instructions is going to have written them up their own way. So you just have to read through any instructions you get and pick through the wording and kind of come up with a list of all the chapters. Now, this proposal instruction document is nicely laid out. They won't all be this easy to follow. Now, we've taken the yellow highlighter tool here, and we've highlighted in yellow all the key phrases that we picked out that sounded like they'd be good chapter headers. And most of these just happen to be the header text that they wrote into the instructions. So overview, the contract type, period of past performance, or period of performance, and so on. And as we scroll down this instruction list, you'll see we highlighted a bunch of words just to give us a starting map that we're going to turn into a list of actual chapters in the proposal kit. Since different people were writing these instructions, they're just coming up with their own phrases, so they're not going to be exact matches to chapter headers. But because Proposal Kit has thousands of chapters, we're going to be able to find matching topics to put together a complete list of chapters to match this RFP layout. Now, RFP instructions, sometimes they'll give you forms that they want you to include in the proposal, and there's ways to do that. You can add empty blank pages into the proposal and then paste in forms. Doing that sometimes can cause page margin issues and so on. So sometimes assembling all the pieces in PDF format is easier than assembling external documents into your proposal document via Word. So you might have to figure out the best way to assemble the whole thing based on the RFP you were given and extra content you may have been given to include. Because we've had so much time with the proposal kit, we put this whole thing together, it's pretty quick for us to see how we're going to map these phrases. So someone who's never used proposal kit before, never done this before, you might spend a little more time just looking around the screens in the wizard and trying to come up with ways to find templates to match your topics. You don't have to get these exact because you're going to be replacing the body content of the proposal kit pages with your own content. So just come up with matches to the chapters as best you can, because you're going to be editing everything once it's fully assembled. Now you'll see we picked out cover letter. We've already got cover letter. Title page and back page, those are just proposal kit templates that give you a front cover and a back cover. Table of contents, you should usually add one of those if it's a longer document. Now we're just going to scroll through the instructions here, and we see, okay, they've asked for an overview. We don't see overview here, but we know there's one in proposal kit. We'll just go to the search by name tab, and we're going to search for the overview chapter. In contract type, let's just search for the word contract. Period of performance, well, we know there's a past performance template in the proposal kit. And as I'm searching on single words, I'm not going to search for multi-word phrases. That's going to be harder to match on. So we're just going to search for those three to start with. Okay, so we've actually found an overview chapter. Contract type, well, we found a contracting, well, that's close enough. Period of performance, we're just going to add the performance page. There's a past performance page, but that's more talking about your past experience and past projects, not the actual period of this particular performance. So I'll just pick the performance chapter. And we'll select those. Now we've added those to our project here. Now let's move on to business classification, information, and place of performance. That's going to be a tougher one, but at least we know in Proposal Kit, we're just going to pick the Operations chapter. Another thing you can do instead of searching on words is, in this case, business classification, information, place, or performance. That's talking about your company. So we could just go into the Add Templates tab, click this drop down, and scroll down to the chapters that talk about our company. And we can just look through these couple pages of chapters and see if anything sounds like it'd be good for business classification and information. So we can just pick company operations. That kind of covers that situation. Now we have a couple chapters here: royalties, license fees. That's probably good in Proposal Kit to split up into a couple different pages. So go back to search by name here, clear the form, and let's look up license and royalties. Now, licensing and royalties also is related to rights. So we found a licensing, that's a good one. Let's look up rights. That's more of an intellectual property chapter. Another way we can find intellectual property chapters, since royalties and licensing fees kind of fit into that, we can go into Add Templates, click this drop down, and let's look at the intellectual property category, and you'll see licensing and rights are right there. We could have just checked these off from this page. I notice even though we added these chapters from the Search by Name tab, because we've added them to our project, you're seeing them displayed on this screen as well. Okay, now payment terms. Let's just look for the word payment. Representations and certifications here. Let's see. I know we don't have a template called representations, but we know we do have one for certifications. Let's just search for these two. So we found a payment terms chapter and we found a certification chapter. So we'll just add both of those to our project. Scroll down the instructions here. Now there's something called Absence of Organizational Conflicts of Interest, OCI. Now that is a completely custom chapter for this specific RFP. So you're not going to find anything exactly matching this. But you can think of the concept, conflicts of interest, let's just search on the word conflict. Now we have socioeconomic business plan concern. That's another very specific kind of chapter. But what if we just search for socio? Sometimes doing small partial keyword searches are the best option. So we found conflict management. That's a good concept for conflicts of interest. Socioeconomic issues, that actually fits right in with socioeconomic business plan concern. So we'll select that. We'll add those to our project. Now we get to limitations and summary of exceptions. So let's search for exception and limitation. right, so we actually have a limitations chapter and an exceptions chapter. I'll add those to our project. All right, now we get to financial health. Well, we don't have a financial health chapter. We do have a financial information chapter. And then we also have, they're asking for information and cybersecurity. So let's look for financial information and cyber. I notice we're only looking up 1, 2, 3 chapters at a time just to get this done in bite-sized pieces. Okay, so financial information will cover it because that's, you can just talk about your financial health within the financial information chapter. Information and cybersecurity, well, there's an information chapter and there's a cybersecurity chapter. Add all those. Now, foreign sourcing. So this is another one where we have a chapter, but it's not going to be exactly titled. Let's just search for sourcing. And then we get into technical management, technical section. So these aren't going to be chapters we're going to add because we're going to add the chapters below for the detailed pages. So technical approach. Let's just look up the word approach. Trade-off studies. Studies is actually the more common word. So we'll search for these three: sourcing, approach, and studies. So we do have outsourcing, that's actually foreign sourcing. Technical approach, we have an approach and a technical approach, that's an exact match. Trade-off studies, well, we have a studies. Okay, we got it. 3 added. All right, so the next one is specialty engineering, high-risk tasks, and system configuration. So what do we have for those? Well, let's search for the word engineering. Notice I'm just shortening this up to engineer. High-risk tasks. Let's just actually look for risk. And notice I'm picking the key phrase. I'm not picking out the word high, that's not going to give me anything useful. Risk is the actual term that's going to be what we're looking for. And tasks, that's just a task list or something. So we're going to search for the word risk. System configuration, again, we're going to search for the word configuration. Okay, so for engineering, actually just engineering works. High-risk tasks, we have risk management. System configuration, well, we'll just pick configuration. Add those to the list. Testing approach, operations manuals, government approved systems. So we could search for the word testing or approach. So we'll just search for the word testing. Operations manuals. Now a manual, we're not going to have a chapter called manual because a manual is going to be an entire document made up of subchapters. Operations, if I search for that, we're going to get things like company operations. So what's operations manuals? Those are documentation. So we'll just search for the word documentation. And government approved systems. Again, that's another very specialized topic. We'll just search for the word system. Okay, so for testing approach, we'll just pick testing plan. For operations manuals, we'll just pick documentation. And government approved systems. Well, we'll just pick system plan. And we're just going to retitle that. All right. Now we have management approach, past experience, scheduling, staffing. So I just search for the word management. Past experience, so that could be past performance or your experience, so on. We'll search for the word past this time, because we know we have a chapter that's going to cover that word. Schedule, staffing plans. So that's a good one to split up into 2 chapters actually for proposal kit. We're just going to search for the word schedule and staffing. We'll just pick project management. For past experience, well, there's a past performance. That's close enough. And for schedule and staffing plans, well, we'll use the schedule template and the staffing template. So now there's 4 more. And now we have quality assurance configuration management approach. We'll search for the word quality. Now for key personnel, we could search for the word personnel, staff, or so on, key. But this chapter is talking about the key important information. So we could search for the word key. Now this is another one where we could go back to that Add Templates tab, click the drop down for About Our Company, since this key personnel is a template that's going to be within the Your Company category. And then engineering capability. Well, we'd search on engineering before, but the keyword here is capability. So let's just search on the word capability. And note too that the wizard is searching for the exact match or a partial keyword match, but it also is going to show you any related templates that we have tagged as related to ones that it found in the search, in case that might show you something that has a completely different wording, but it might be the one you're looking for. So that's why we're only searching for 1, 2, 3 templates at a time. Otherwise, this chapter templates found gets pretty long, and you can control this a little bit more with these checkboxes. But we search for a quality template. Let's just pick quality assurance. That pretty much matches the first couple words. Key personnel. Oh, we have key positions. That's pretty much what we're looking for. Engineering capability. So in this case, we have a lot of templates here. So let's just pick the 2 we found. Let's clear this and just search for 1. So we're just going to search for the word capable. Now we're going to shorten it up because, what if the ending is spelled differently? Capability versus capabilities. So we'll just search for the front part. Yep, and we found a capabilities tab. That'll work. Okay, facilities and equipment. So for proposal kit, this is good to split this up into 2 different chapters. All right, so we have a template for equipment and one for facilities. Add those. Now we're getting actually pretty close to the end here. So financial capability We don't have a template called financial capability, but it does say in the description here, include past 2 years of annual reports. Well, we have annual reports, so let's just search for the word annual. Say supporting documentation. Well, we don't have a template called exactly supporting documentation, but we do have something called related documentation. Now this is where it might be harder for a new person to propose a kit, because we just happen to know how many phrases, and it's easy for us to pick out some of these quickly. You might have to spend a little more time searching through the database, looking through the list of chapters we have. Or you can always just contact us and ask us what a chapter related in the system would be to a chapter you're looking for. We do this all the time, helping people out, mapping their RFP instructions. And also pricing. Okay, so for financial capability, annual reports, well, we're just going to pick the annual report template. So for supporting documentation, we're going to pick related documents. And for pricing, we'll pick price structure. Now you could just as easily pick price list or whatever. Just pick something that sounds like it's going to be close. All right, now that we have all the templates selected for this RFP, notice we have like 40 chapters, and the order in this list is not the same order in those RFP instructions. So that's our next task, is now that we have the chapters selected, let's reorder them to match the order of this RFP. So you can see we want them in this exact order that we selected. So the proposal kit, as we were adding them, just added them in its default ordering. So you'll see that these are all out of order. So what we can do is we can just go back, start reading the RFP, and just we'll pick our matching templates. So left cover letter, title page, table of contents, those will always be first. Overview, yeah, kept that first. Things like system plan, things like that are going to get moved way down. So now we've got to find our contract type, which was our contracting template. Select that, and this will just take a few minutes. So I'm going to skip ahead and just reorder this, but you can see how I select an item and just move it up, move it down to get them all in the right order. So I'll do this right now, then we'll skip ahead a bit. Now that we've changed the order of everything to match the RFP instructions in its list, now we're ready to actually build a template. So we click the OK Use Selected Templates to get out of the Pick Documents screen. Okay, so now we are back at the project screen. We have our custom logo selected. Notice we've turned off the dynamic spreadsheet linking. If you have it turned on, it's going to actually link cells in the Excel spreadsheets to any of the financial pages. Since this is going to be a very custom proposal, we're not going to be using the proposal kits spreadsheets. And also this speeds up the demo. It tells you, yeah, we've got 40 chapters selected, so this will be a 40+ page document once it's created. The company data and client data screens, you would just fill these in with your information. So whatever you enter into these fields will get put into the document, into its cover letter, title page, and so on. Whatever you put in the client data screen, that's the person or organization you're writing the proposal to. So you'd put that in here, and that information will get put into various places in the proposal just to save you a little time. Once we've got the data in there, templates are selected, Once you click OK, Save Project and Build Documents, the wizard will build you the document. Now we just sit back and wait for it. So a 40-page document is going to take a few minutes to build, so we'll just skip ahead here. Okay, now the document's been generated. Open that up, see what it looks like. And so we've got our cover letter. It imported our custom logo. It changed the black and gray color scheme to the blues and greens that we set. And it filled in the table of contents. Now we have the exact list of chapters we selected out of the proposal kit. Now things like your domain here, that just was put in the company data screen, so whatever you would have typed in would be input there. And you can further customize this. You could turn off the page borders, you can change the bullet points, you can change the typography, and so on. All of this is editable. And you can see it applied the blue-green color scheme to various parts of the document. So now this document is actually ready to start editing. So you can see in just a few minutes it generated a document of 48 pages long that matches the layout instructions. So now the next step is customizing this template, and this doesn't even have to use our wizard software anymore, so everything we do at this point forward on this document is just within our word processor. So we could even shut down our wizard there. Let's bring up the RFP instructions, and now we're just going to edit this document to match the RFP instructions. So once we've got the chapter headers customized, then the document's ready for you to just start filling in your actual information into the templates. And all of that is just word processing. So anything you know about writing proposals, anything you learn anywhere else, any material you get from anywhere else, or you've written yourself, or you've been given by the agency to include, it's just all word processing using your word software at this point. So to change the chapter headers, what we do is we just edit the text here. And you see this is in large black text. If you want to edit this typography to change the chapter headers, all text for these chapter headers is in this proposal kit page header font type. So for example, if we modify this font style, say if we change it from Arial Black to Open Sans, change the color to a dark blue, you can see it changes it in every single chapter. So to change typography, because we've applied word styles to all the elements of the text in all the pages, you can just change these word styles up here. So we'll just undo that change for now. That's just a quick tip on how to customize the visual look. Now we'll go back and start editing the chapters to match. So overview, we're going to keep that the same. So contracting, that'll just become contract type. Performance, we'll just change that to period of performance. Operations, that's going to be our business classification down here. So rights and our licensing, we'll just leave rights the same. And licensing, we'll just change that to license fees. And so on. So we'll just go through this whole document And I'll just skip ahead here, and I'm just going to go through and retitle everything. So certifications, that's going to become representations and certifications. Okay, so we've gone through and retitled everything. Now we have to regenerate the table of contents. So if we highlight, right-click your mouse, and click Update Field, Word updates the chapter headers because we've defined this table of contents to be built off of those font styles that we just showed you. And you can see all of the chapter headers now exactly match everything that's asked for in this RFP instruction list. So now all you have to do is actually fill in the chapters with your own information matching what they're asking for in the RFP, and then you're ready to submit your proposal. So Proposal Kit is going to let you quickly create a very complex document, whether it's 5 pages, 20 pages, 40 pages or more. You could generate something 100 pages. It will quickly let you generate a template matching your RFP once you've mapped what they're asking for to our chapters and customized the settings, built the document. It will save you hours or days assembling long, complex documents. And that's all there is to it. There's another instruction manual included in the proposal kit on how to write government grant proposals. It will go into some of this as well. So if you open your proposal kit, this is the professional version. It'll also be in individual proposal packs. And look at the instruction manuals, and there'll also be a PDF in the root install folder of each proposal pack. And this extra instruction manual is the user's guide on government RFPs, government grants, and the information here will also be applicable to writing any complex document where you're following a set of instructions. So look at this manual, look at all the examples included. Other videos will show you lots of ways to customize the system. If you ever get stuck, we're available to help. And that is how you generate a template for responding to a government RFP. Let us know what you think in the comments below, and click subscribe to keep up on the latest proposal writing tips with Proposal Kit.